I've got my Firebird hanging on the wall.
Nice.
I'm not going to plug in because I have about 1/10 of the talent that you have. So I think people would probably rather hear you talk and play rather than me do anything at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for joining us here. What we usually do to kick things off is we just have our guests kind of introduce themselves, let anybody who's on the live stream know a little bit about their background, where they're coming from musically. And before we do that, I just want to make a quick announcement. We will be saving this stream, so we'll be archiving this later on the Elixir Instagram channel. So anybody watching who maybe can't stay for the whole thing or isn't able to join us today, we will save this. You can watch it at your leisure at any time. Just keep an eye out on the Elixir channels for where that will be. So without further ado, welcome again, and let's learn a little bit more about Shannon's world.
My world? That's a loaded question. Yeah,
how about just the guitar portion of the world?
Just the guitar. You don't want to know all the other stuff?
Maybe later if we have time.
How long is this stream?
We'll go about 30 minutes, so maybe we won't get into everything.
Yeah, so based here in Nashville, Tennessee. I've been playing guitar since I was probably like 13 or 14. Just kind of come from a musical background, so started out playing piano, then picked up guitar along the way, and it just kind of stuck, and I've kind of just been playing ever since.
So are you originally from Nashville, or did you move to Nashville to pursue music?
No, so I'm from Kentucky, so not too far.
Okay.
But I moved to Nashville about 6 years ago, but I didn't really move here for music in particular. I moved here for a job, and it just so happened that I was in Nashville, so it all just kind of worked out. I mean, I had done music in college, but I played oboe in college, so my musical journey does not make a lot of sense.
Well, how does one get from oboe to guitar?
I don't know. So I don't know. I played guitar, just kind of picked it up because I played in church growing up, played piano, just kind of picked it up, learned chords and things like that. But, I didn't really start to take it seriously until probably like maybe 7 or 8 years ago. Like I really started to practice a lot. But I don't know. I just kind of did the whole oboe thing in college and like finished college, got a job. And then it was like, oh, okay, well, now I have time to kind of pursue, guitar more seriously. And so here we are.
Well, that's a nice short version of it. One of the things that we also like to do is learn a little bit more about our guests' setups and preferences when it comes to guitars. I know everybody is different, and everybody that we've talked to fall kind of one or two camps. Either they set up their guitars by feel, or they're very particular and they sit there with a ruler and they measure action down to like the millimeter and stuff like that. Which camp do you fall in? I think I have an idea.
I fall into like, if it sounds good, then cool. I don't really care about stuff like, I'm probably the worst person, especially when it comes to like gear and all of that kind of stuff. I don't know. If I like the way that something sounds, then, cool. But I don't really focus on like setup and stuff like that.
So it feels good, it's good.
Yeah, like if it just feels good, then that's good. I mean, especially like when it comes to pedals and whatnot, like I'm not a huge pedal person. I have a lot of pedals, but I don't really use them. But yeah, it's just kind of like, if it feels good.
I've noticed that when I see you play in videos and things, your tone seems to be really clean. And you said you do have a lot of pedals, but you don't use a lot of them all the time. Can we maybe talk about your signal chain and what you typically like for a sound going straight from the guitar to the amp, or are there any pedals that you do favor kind of in between that you tend to lean on and the not?
It depends. Like if I'm playing live, I've got I have a Fender Deluxe reverb amp back to back. And usually if I'm playing live, I'll have like a distortion pedal, some type of reverb. And that's really pretty much all that I use. But if I'm just like sitting here in a room playing, I actually got one of these, it's a Fender Mustang Gtx, and it's got a bunch of different like presets built into it. So I've kind of like been exploring that a little bit more, and there's a lot of different tones to kind of choose from and play with. There's an envelope filter preset that I've really been into lately, so I've been exploring that world quite a bit.
You brought it up. Can we hear maybe what the envelope filter sounds like? Is that kind of like a wah-wah type effect, or am I thinking something?
Yeah, it's a little bit. Let me see if I can get it set up over here.
Because I know I've used envelope followers before on bass.
Yeah.
I haven't used them on guitars, and it does add kind of an opening and closing type of effect. Envelopes on synthesizers will do something different, where they, over time will change how the filter works.
Yeah.
We can kind of hear what you're talking about.
You hear that?
Okay.
Of course, that has like a bunch of delay on it, because you can it's got presets that like Fender has made built in, but you can kind of go in and make them more how you want them. But that's just like the generic preset for that. But it's been a lot of fun.
I know that is a very that's a very Jerry Garcia type of effect.
Yeah.
Very 1970s live Grateful Dead. I think he had one of those on all the time. So if you listen to any live Dead stuff from that era, you're gonna hear an envelope.
Yeah. I think too, more in today's guitar play, a lot of people they really love Tom Misch.
Yeah.
Including myself. I feel like today, people think envelope filter, they think of Tom Misch, because that's kind of like his signature sound now,
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so I've been playing around with that quite a bit. But yeah, I don't really get too crazy. It's just direct in a little bit of reverb, and I'm good to go.
I think one of the things that helps is you play pretty cleanly too, not tone wise, but stylistically. When I hear you play, a lot of it is very clean and articulate, and every note it is played with clarity. So I think adding too much modulation or dirt to that can really kind of muddy things up. I want to talk about two things that you touched upon. One, we're going to go back to this guitar that you're holding, because that looks amazing. But you had mentioned, another player who you had heard the envelope filter from. Who else kind of out there in the world now do you follow, or is kind of someone that you admire or look up to in the guitar world?
Yeah, sure. Well, I grew up listening to players like Pat Metheny, George Benson. My mom, she's a huge George Benson fan, so I grew up listening to players like that. And then, of course, I discovered John Mayer, and so it was all over after that. He was kind of I hate to be basic, but he was kind of the main inspiration is why I wanted to start taking guitar more seriously. But I think it was a mixture of because I'm not only a guitar player, I'm a singer-songwriter as well, so it's seeing a player like him that is not only, a great guitarist, he's also a great songwriter, vocalist, all of that. So I think he was probably one of the biggest inspirations for me, just because, that was kind of what I essentially wanted to do, Yeah,
and it's interesting, the three that you mentioned there, Metheny and George Benson, you said, and John Mayer, I think are all primarily known for playing a little bit more on the clean side too. I mean, Benson and Metheny, obviously coming from the jazz world, are cleaner, and Mayer is known for that very characteristic clean strat.
Well, I think if you're just starting to play guitar, I think a lot of people, they try to hide behind pedals,
Yeah, distortion.
Yeah, you kind of need to establish you kind of need to establish you're playing and know the basics, the fundamentals, before you kind of get into that whole world, because it can, kind of cover up some of those things,
Yeah, definitely high gain. I think this is a transition we've seen probably in the past 5 to 10 years, is less of a reliance on high gain amps for a lot of guitar players, and especially a lot of guitar influencers online, and more reliance on actually playing really well, because like you said, distortion can cover a multitude of sins. If you go back in time and listen to some of the people that you listened to from previous generations, like a George Benson or something, playing that cleanly, especially through like a solid state amp, like he's been known to do, you gotta play properly, or else every little mistake is going to show. And in fact, there's a couple albums. I don't know if we have a second here.
You got a bunch of albums back there, don't you?
Yeah, so this is probably one of my favorite George Benson albums, and I only bring it out because you had mentioned it. I don't know if you have Good King Bad. You don't have to pick it up on.
I don't have the record. I'm not as cool as you.
Obviously, anybody out there, you can get it on Spotify and Apple Music.
Yeah.
Sure. This is an era where he went into a little bit more of the fusion end of things, away from the traditional kind of hard bop stuff that he'd been playing in the 60s. But anybody looking to pick up some new techniques, this is an amazing album to have. Anything from that Bob James era. I'm just going to hold this up and show everybody why George Benson should be an influence of just about everybody.
What all songs are on that one anyway?
This is amazing. This is an amazing one. So this, I mean, the primary song is the title track, Good King Dad.
Yeah.
One Rock, Don't Make No Boulder. Cast Your Fate to the World is good. Siberian Workout. And then it ends with Shell of a Man. But this record has everybody on it. Eric Gale is the supporting guitarist on this, in addition to George Benson.
Okay.
You've got tons of great keyboard.
Give Me the Night. That's my favorite. Love Times Love. I mean, come on.
Yeah. This has Steve Gadd on drums. You can't ask for anything better than that. And then you've got the Brecker Brothers, as always, on the horn section. Pretty much every record from CTI during this era has Brecker Brothers. But anyway, that was a kind of little deviation. But when you mention influences like that, especially people of maybe a younger age who aren't familiar with those players, yeah, let's definitely get those records in their hands. They should be listening to them, because that might spark some ideas.
Oh yeah, he's like the king of technique too. Like, I feel like for me, I never took lessons, so I never really learned the right way, I guess you could say. So I kind of just had to make things work, for myself, and I didn't necessarily learn the right way, but yeah, he's definitely somebody to look up to in terms of like his technique and how he plays.
But what does that mean, the right way? I've heard you're playing. That's the right way.
Well, like learning with a teacher and like actually taking lessons, and I for the longest time, like, I would not play with a pick. I don't know. I still kind of struggle with it to this day, but I think that's why I lean more to like hybrid picking, because I, learned just kind of with my fingers, and I would actually use my thumb, like, to do a lot of, like, if I were trying to do like a fast type, picking style, I would use my thumb. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of struggled with using a pick, so I just kind of learned this odd way of how to play guitar.
Would you mind playing maybe a little something for us now, just so we can kind of hear a little bit?
Just like hybrid picking style?
Yeah, just a little something.
Yeah. Let me see. Let me take off the envelope folder.
People are saying, there's a couple of comments here on picking technique, and someone saying that relying on a pick too much can act as a crutch. It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I often, when I'm playing by myself, don't use a pick.
You don't?
Yeah.
You don't use a pick? Yeah, like I if I'm gonna use a pick, I'll usually use like a smaller pick, like a Jazz 3. I've actually been using the stubby quite a bit lately. I don't know if you
are those
dove into this world. What's up?
Yeah. Are those the 3mm? Those are thick.
Oh yeah, like look at that. It's thick, all right.
That is the Jazz, the little teeny stubby Dunlop 3mm.
Oh yeah. At first I hated it. And I was like, because I got a bunch of picks from Dunlop, because they have a space here in town, and I was there a while back, and they just gave me every kind of pick in the world. But yeah, I guess like I usually use like a pick, and then I'll use these fingers here to kind of just. It's just, you know, I don't know. It's just whatever works. But for the longest time, I didn't even use a pick. I would just use my thumb.
But what I'm hearing is, and I've seen this on other players too, is you're able to control the dynamics. I feel a lot more using your fingers than you would be able to do with a pick. Now, I might be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I mean, I guess there is no wrong or right answer, but I feel so that you can. And I also feel like when I'm not using a pick, when I'm just using my fingers, I'm more in control of, like, you know, what I'm actually playing. I guess sometimes with a pick, it's like a little bit harder to, I don't know, to hit all the strings, you know? But like I said, my picking technique is not anything to write home about. So.
Let me ask you this. Do you feel, I feel this way sometimes, do you feel that playing primarily with your fingers or even a hybrid method of picking in fingers, do you feel like that hampers your speed at all, or is that not super important to your style?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's where it kind of gets a little tricky, is you can't really do a lot of like the fast picking. You know, it's like using a pick and doing, you know, the up down, which I can do. But yeah, I think it kind of limits like how fast you can play. But I'm really not like that kind of a showy player anyway to begin with. I'm, you know, more of a, you know, more of like a melodic player. I think like since I'm a singer as well, I'm always looking for like, you know, playing melody lines and whatnot on the guitar. So I'm not trying to shred over here.
Well, I've heard you play some pretty quick passages before.
Yeah.
So don't sell yourself short. We got to talk about this guitar. People keep asking to see it, and what is it? I'm assuming this is a newish Strat. Am I right here?
Yeah, so this is the Ultra. So Fender, they released this, I think, like 2 years ago. This is the American Ultra Stratocaster.
Very cool.
So it's probably, I'd say, like, everybody always asks me, they're like, what's your favorite guitar? And it's like, I don't know. I have a lot of favorites. I kind of go in and out of, like, moods. But I always kind of come back to this guitar. I'd say it's probably this guitar that I play the most. And then probably I got this telly back here. I don't know if you can see.
Yeah.
I've also got the American professional telly, but I've really been digging the Player Plus series that Fender just released not too long ago. It's a great guitar. Like it's really nice, and it's a little bit cheaper too.
Fender's been kind of on a roll, especially with the mid-price stuff.
Yeah.
What's that new one that's a weird body shape?
I don't even know how to pronounce it. I can show it to you.
It was like the Meteor or something like that.
Yeah, is that how you? I don't even know how to say it.
I don't know. I'm way off.
Yeah, it's this guy.
Okay, what is this? What is this?
You know, this is actually I've been digging this too. It's also part of the Player Plus series. But yeah, so I got this guitar a couple weeks ago, and they just launched it. I think the 16th or whatever.
Yeah, not that long ago.
Yeah, but it's also it's right up there. Like it's a great neck. I mean, it feels really nice. It sounds great too. So they've been
two
killing
humbuckers in it, which is a little bit different than the Strat setup.
What is it?
This has two humbuckers, it looks like, which is a little bit different than the Strat setup. Okay, cool. Very cool. People are asking, and obviously this makes sense because we're on the Elixir channel, what sort of string gauges you prefer, and does that differ based on the guitar, or do you stick to kind of one?
Dude, I love nines. I used to play tens, but I don't know. I've actually got right here these puppies right here.
That's what I got. I do 9 to 46. I used to do the 9 to 42, but I like a little heavier on the bottom now.
These are perfect. And then, so I use these, and then I usually do the 10s for acoustic, which I've got these right here.
So you go a little bit lighter. You know what? It's weird. You and I have very similar preferences when it comes to a lot of guitar-related stuff, which I think is kind of, it's good to find a
easier. They're just easier to play, you know?
That's what I feel. I go on these guitar forums, and people are like, oh, you have to string it up with 11s or you're not a real player. And it's like, why? Why do I have to fight this instrument? I just want to play it. you know?
Yeah. Well, I think everybody's different too. You know, there's really no right or wrong. It's like you just like what you like, and if that's what you like, then so be it.
Yeah. We're getting close to our end time. So if anybody does have questions that you want to pop in the comments, I've been trying to keep an eye on those as we go, just so we can save time. Let me go through and see if there was anything that I wanted to talk about. We went through your signal chain. So someone did have a question on Twitter about your amp settings. Is there any particular way that you kind of set up the EQ on the amp to get your particular tone? Anything with the highs, mids, lows that would be a little bit different or that you prefer?
I wish I had a better answer for you, but I really don't. I mean, I could show you what my amp settings are currently, if you like.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Here, let me take this off. I'm not as like, when it comes to playing, I don't know. I don't really care about stuff like that. Or I should pay more attention to that kind of stuff, but I just don't, you know? So people are like, what's your setup like, bro? And it's like, I have no idea. Let me so this is what I'm working with. I usually plug in to this right here, to vibrato. And then, I mean, it's nothing crazy, a little bit of reverb, you know. I mean, it's a pretty standard, how dusty this is. But it's nothing too crazy. But like I said, I haven't really been using this that much because I haven't been playing live shows lately. I've been using this Mustang Gtx amp quite a bit. So...
Have you found that live stuff is kind of coming back in Nashville now, or are you looking to get out more?
Yeah, I think like I think the last time we played was in January, and we've just kind of been focusing on making, like, we've kind of been in the studio, so we've been producing a bunch of stuff and working on new songs. So that's kind of been like my main focus, and so we have a couple tracks that we're going to be releasing soon. So once those come out, I'll definitely probably book some shows here in town. We did a tour at the end of November. We did a little run up northeast, hit a couple places. And that was our first like official tour. But we just played like 4 shows. So we'll get back out there later this year, I'm sure.
Very cool. Well, I'm looking forward to the new music. I'd love to learn a little bit more about your writing process. Do you primarily write on guitar or piano?
It varies, yeah. Sometimes I'll write on piano quite a bit too. The EP that we released last year, I guess it was last year. Most of those songs I actually wrote on piano. But yeah, it just kind of varies. I try to do a little bit with piano, do a little bit with guitar, because I feel like sometimes you can kind of hit a wall, you know, when it comes to writing. So it's nice to branch out and try different things. So,
are there any other new guitars that you've got your eye on?
No, I have too many.
No such thing.
Too many.
There's no such thing. I always encourage more spending.
Yeah, right. Not really. I feel like I have kind of everything that I need. There was a guitar, like when I first got into guitar, I'd always wanted a Nash. I don't know if you're familiar with Nash guitars.
Yeah, kind of like Fender style.
Basically, they're like based off of like a 50s vintage Fender, but I think it's back there. Yeah, it's that black one right there. Right. That was kind of like my dream guitar for the longest time, and so I finally got that, and then I have all of these Fender guitars, so I think I'm good. I think I'm good with guitars for right now.
I don't know.
I don't have any room anyway. I ran out of wall
hanging there.
Yeah. So, is that the only one that you have back there?
This is the only one that I've got hanging up. If I turn my camera, let's see, we can probably see the rack.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, I've got a.
Ooh, I like that neon. Is that a neon? What is that?
I've got
that green one.
Yeah, so that's a Charvel Pro Mod. I've also got an ESP next to it, which is the other neon pink.
Very cool.
And I built a couple warm kind of parts things.
Yeah.
But I primarily am a Strat person. I think you and I are similar in that way. Never been a Les Paul type of. I've always loved the look of a Les Paul. I think they look beautiful. Just never kind of gelled with it. So I don't know what that's about.
Yeah, speaking of like that, like I love PRS guitar.
Oh,
I
of course.
don't like the way they look. I had one briefly, and it was like...
You like the way they play, but not the way they look?
I love the way they play, but I don't like the way they look. It just doesn't fit me personally. It doesn't really fit my aesthetic, I guess. But I think they're great sounding guitars. I love them. I just don't.
That's so interesting because I hear from people the opposite sometimes. They're like, wow, they look amazing, they look stellar, and then there's something about the way that they play that they don't particularly.
Really?
So it's interesting that you're kind of the reverse of that.
Well, it's a more thicker neck, I feel like, but I don't know. It's just like a warmer tone. It's like a warmer sounding guitar. But no, I love them. I used to have one of the SE. I think it was... I can't remember the dude's name. I think he played in the band Shinedown or something, but it was like his signature guitar.
It might have been like the Zach Myers model?
Yes, it was that one.
I've seen those. Those are pretty cool looking.
Yeah, I mean, it was okay. Like, there for a little while, I was like, this is what I want. Like, this is my dream guitar. And then I had it, played it for a while, enjoyed it, but then it was just like, I don't like the way that it looked. So,
yeah, I
sold it.
So we do have time for one last question here. This comes from Twitter, and someone wants to know how you go about writing your guitar parts. And specifically, I guess they're interested in learning, does your guitar writing come from practicing? I guess they mean maybe technique-wise, or does your writing come from a more melodic place? And I can maybe guess, but I'd love to hear.
I think kind of both. I mean, you know, I do a lot of stuff like for Instagram, like just writing random guitar stuff to post. And a lot of times, like, I'll take whatever I write for that and I'll like incorporate it into a song in some way. So yeah, I think it's sometimes it's like a melody line that I come up with on guitar. Sometimes it's a chord progression. I don't know. It just kind of varies, you know?
Okay, cool. While we've got you here for another minute or two, do you think we can coax you into maybe playing us out with a little something?
Sure. What do you want to hear?
Anything that you want to play. I mean, I would love to give people a sense of kind of something that sort of fits the sound and would most define what you're kind of like as a player.
I could play. I'm trying to think. Let's see. I actually had like a little looper thing going earlier. You want me to play something with that, maybe?
Cool. Yeah.
I don't know how it'll sound on live. You never know about these kind of things.
We'll give it a shot.
But let me see how this sounds.
Working for me. Works for me.
I probably sound like trash.
No.
Sorry.
I think no. People can definitely hear that. What I was talking about earlier with your dynamic control using your right hand, which I think everybody should practice because that's a really great technique to have.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
Shannon, before we go, I want to thank you again for joining us here. It's been a pleasure talking with you this afternoon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
People find you online if they're so inclined.
You can find me at ShannonLaurenCallahan.com. I think all my socials are on my website, so that's probably the easiest way. But I'm on pretty much everything. Except for Twitter. I guess I am on Twitter, but I never use it. So
I think a lot of people are on Twitter and just kind of...
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, but I don't really use it. It's probably my least used form of social media. But
I think most people can find you on Instagram pretty
Yeah.
easily. They just type in Shannon Lauren Callihan, you'll find her probably at the top of the list. And there's some really wonderful videos that I've watched myself on YouTube that are great. You said you've got new music coming out, so people should stay tuned for that. And with that, we will let you go. I do want to let everybody know who's joined us here, or maybe joined us and wasn't able to stay the whole time. We will save the video. We will archive it here on the Elixir channel, also over at Performer Magazine. So through one of those various platforms, you'll be able to watch this. And if you missed anything, rewatch it again. So thank you to everybody who joined. Thank you to Shannon again for joining us here, and for Elixir for allowing us to host these types of events.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Really appreciate it. It's fun.
We'll talk to you again soon. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.